So here's a little review of this section, and again, you are doing awesome, and you completely have my my permission to go out and celebrate with a friend. Go out to dinner, you deserve it. Go pop the top on a beer, open a bottle of wine, or get some dessert, some ice cream if a bottle of beer and a glass of wine's not your thing. Because you have accomplished some great stuff. You've hit another milestone. You got through this section and you learned some awesome stuff. I mean, look at how far you've come in just one section. Like you're building web pages. Not only that, you know how to build them and you're learning how to build them well, right? You've learned some basic tags. You've learned the basic structure of an HTML page and what the different parts are. You've learned great resources for going and learning, right, about this stuff. So you have those resources where, hey, I could go over to Shay Howe's website. I can go over to MDN. So that's all in our resources right up here, right here. MDN, Learning the Web, and Shay Howe right there. So you've got all that stuff. Where's my little review comments? There we go. And the basic structure of a web page and some basic tags. And you've learned Emmet, and you've learned where do you go to look up documentation? What's your place for referencing, like how do I actually do this? So you learned about MDN is the definitive source. So a lot of your Google searches, when you're searching for things to do with the web, you'll just go to MDN, Google MDN image, MDN image. And so if I was to do image tag HTML, right, and W3 Schools is often going to be the first one that comes up. And they do have good stuff, but they also have flawed documentation. There are places where their documentation is completely incorrect and out of date. And so look at it, and I do look at it, and there's things I use from it, right, in teaching sometimes, but also take it with a grain of salt. And your first go-to should always be MDN when you're Googling something to do with the web. So yeah, we learned about where do we look things up. We learned about the structure, formatting, and functionality. The HTML is your structure, CSS is your formatting, and JavaScript is your functionality. Tags and attributes. So we learned about tags and attributes, opening tag, closing tag, and then there's some self-closing tags. The contents in the middle when you have an opening and closing tag. And then tags can have attributes, and those attributes will be set to values, right? The attribute will have a value. So we learned these basic HTML tags right here, and we saw the self-closing tags right here. Like this stuff is just like, when you have your head wrapped around this, you have another really good solid foundation for building onto the next level, right? Understanding these things. You saw how you're supposed to name your files. You got an example of how to do folder structure, and another resource you can look at for additional folder structure. And you saw the difference between relative and absolute URLs. And you're starting to create pages. We created that awesome page, that Firefox page, right? And it was totally cool. So that's what we've learned so far. So call up that friend, get out that bottle of beer, or that bottle of wine, or that container of ice cream, or just at least get up, take a break, go get a glass of water and a piece of fruit, which I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna go have some breakfast, and then come back and we're gonna learn about CSS. So we've learned about HTML right here, introduction to HTML. And now we're going to learn about introduction to CSS, and that's going to allow us to start formatting our web pages and making them look nice, And so this outline right here up at the top kind of gives us a high-level overview. Introduction to HTML is what we just finished with, and now we're moving into introduction to CSS, and we're going to see some awesome stuff in there.